Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I am Leboline, the voice of marketing and your friend in all things marketing, brand building, business mindset, and sometimes pop culture. I have to make this disclaimer before we go into this because I know a lot of you have been waiting for me to release videos and you're asking me, Lebo, where are you? Where have you been? I firstly appreciate all of your support and the fact that you guys do text me, email me, and say to me, we need more videos, babes. I agree. I want to be on YouTube on a more consistent basis. And I'm going to be quite honest and transparent and say that we've had so many production challenges that it's been hard for me to produce the standard of video that I want to produce. Then I had to go back to the drawing board and say to myself, wait a minute, babes, you need to take your own advice. And what do I say to everybody? You need to just start. You need to go for it, right? We need to be more consistent than we need to be perfect, because perfection doesn't guarantee results, but consistency does. So this is what the page is going to look like from now on. I'm going to be speaking from my couch, from my office, from hotel rooms, from anywhere that I am. Whenever there's something I want to say, I'm just going to post it on this channel as it is, and we're going to work with it, because this is a community after all where we're about knowledge sharing, we're about talking about what's relevant, and then we're about speaking about how we can be change agents in the world, right? And be better human beings. And that's what this channel is going to be about. So I hope that you will stick with me on this journey and help me build this community. I'm super grateful for everybody who's always been here, who's consistently in this community, who says, listen, we're riding or dying with we are ride or dies. And to that I say, thank you, Lion Tribe. So let's get into today's topic, because it's quite spicy. And whether you're South African or not, you will be able to relate to the story, because it resonates to anybody who's built a business with their partner, anybody who understands entrepreneurship and brand building and what it's like to have money when you've never had money, and how our behaviors change once that happens. So that's what today's story is about. There's a South African entrepreneur called Lekau Sehoana. Lekau owns a brand called Drip, and Drip is a footwear brand that's expanded into many other things, but it started as a footwear brand, and it became, I think, one of South Africa's top 2 footwear brands that was started here. It was between Drip and Batu, and Batu is another case study that we'll maybe talk about another time. The thing about Drip that made it different and stand out in the market is that it had a very streetwear, unapologetic, we're here to take over personality and vibe and brand sentiment that appealed to the hustler, the entrepreneur, the person who's a go-getter, the person who wants to take over things and doesn't care about being conventional. Because when you look at the design of the Drip sneaker, it is a bit out there. It's a bit more futuristic. It's a bit more Kanye West in that sense, you know? So I think it appealed to a lot of younger people, but also older people who believed in African entrepreneurship, African brands, being a go-getter, starting things and having the audacity to exist in a market that has predominantly only had international brands and Caucasian brands. So it's very profound that Lekau was able to create this brand that became this successful in such a short space of time. And if you've ever followed the journey of Drip or Batu, you'll know that both of the brands came to stardom or became commercially successful after key celebrities advertised their sneakers for them, whether it was on purpose or not. That's how both brands kind of blew to commercial success. I know with the Drip sneaker, it was when Basitsana Khumalo wore it and she posted it in her stories, and from then on, things just went big for Lekau, and he's been able to secure a lot of brand deals, have a lot of celebrities in the stable and influencers who will promote the sneaker on his behalf, and it's really become a household brand. You see a lot of organizations buying it for their staff members. It's really become this big deal. When you look at Lekau's journey, he has a story about how he started many businesses and he kept trying many businesses that failed, and then eventually he landed on Drip, and Drip is the one that worked. Wonderful. I mean, on the surface, it's great. It's a story of inspiration. It's a story of African entrepreneurship, resilience. We love it. But now there's the dark side to Drip that's got South Africa up in arms, and people are confused about what is actually happening here. Is Lekau a genuine person, an entrepreneur? Is his story even real? And now I'm going to bring this story to now, August 2024, early August. I'm recording this video actually on the 3rd of August. And a podcast interview has surfaced on Madam Speaker's podcast where she interviews Lekau's estranged wife, Lebogang, about Drip, about her marriage with Lekau, and what's actually going on. The reason why this interview is so significant is because over the past year or so, Lekau has been making a lot of radical claims about his marriage and his wife. He said that his wife has attempted to send a hitman after him to kill him and harm him. He says that his wife is only after his money. He says his wife won't let him go. He's been making a lot of claims, and unfortunately, he's been using social media to amplify these claims that he makes. And so it's painted his wife in a certain light. And until now, we only heard Lekau's side of the story. So now with this podcast that came out from Madam Speaker, we heard for the first time Lebogang breaking the silence and speaking her truth. And when you hear her story, you kind of question yourself and you say, is Lekau really the entrepreneur that he says he is? And what is the value of people who have social media fame and entrepreneurs who have social media fame? Are they responsible with their influence and fame, or do they also just use it as a tool to control not only their customers and their fans, but also their family members, which is something that we really have to talk about because our society is leaning more to being so social media centric that every household will have somebody within who leads from a social media perspective, and that's going to change the dynamics. So when Lebogang was on Perseverance Muremi's podcast, which is Madam Speaker, she speaks about how actually Lekau was actually abusive. And she speaks about how in the beginning he was unemployed and she was the one who was employed because she'd gone to school and she was able to save money to have investment properties. So she put in the startup capital for Drip, but also she was hands-on in doing the orders, the e-commerce facet, everything. She was hands-on. When she'd come back from work, she'd be part of making Drip come to life. So she was really part of the business, and she's saying, I own part of that business. It's also mine. And Lekau was claiming that it isn't. And he's saying he did it all himself from scratch. Nobody helped him. Basically, that's what he's claiming and alluding to. But not only that, he's also gone on a smear campaign to make his wife look like she's completely off the rails, an unreasonable human being who's not allowing Lekau to thrive, and that she's probably quite resentful of his success and she doesn't understand what it's like to be him. So in the podcast, she speaks about how she put all that money in, but also she supported him, and that the reason why their marriage was crumbling is because he started to become abusive and he let the social media fame get to his head so much that he was doing everything to please the public. He cared more about his public persona than he was caring about his family, and that he wasn't really a present father, and all he kept doing was obsessing over the business so much that he wasn't really nurturing his family. So she asked him for a divorce and he didn't want to give her the divorce, so he kept delaying the processes, making promises that he wasn't keeping. And Lebogang's mental health really took a strain to the point where she lost her job and didn't have an income coming in. And even at the time, she claims that Lekau wasn't giving her money for the child. Maybe he'd give her school fees money for 3 months and then he'd stop giving it to her. So she was really in a tight financial bind, even though she was still looking after Lekau's family because he wasn't doing it. He let the fame get to his head. He felt like he was better and he wanted to rub shoulders with people who he thinks matter. So he wasn't paying attention to his family, and then he was gaslighting his family and also dragging Lebogang on social media. One of the most outrageous claims that he made, according to Lebogang, was when he said that Lebogang had sent hitmen after him and that his life was in danger. So he put his location as being in Paris, France, but only to find that he was at a party in Sandton with some of South Africa's movers and shakers, designers like Rich Imnisi. And she says, if a man is that afraid for his life and his life is really in danger like that, why would he be out in Sandton partying if it was true, if his claims were true? And I think she makes some valid points. And what people got from her story was You can't just build with your partner for the sake of love. You guys still need to have contracts in place when you're building businesses. You must never mix business with love. It doesn't matter if it's your husband or your boyfriend or your sibling or a family member. Things need to be documented. Business needs to be run as business. It cannot be done in good faith, because you don't know how people behave when they get a taste of money, especially somebody who never had money and they started having a lot of money. They might change. And people are talking about the fact that it's very important for women to understand that they should not be helping their partners if their partners don't have anything, without conditions, without a contract in place. Because then you find yourself displaced and you don't have money and you don't have resources, and you're depending on this man who doesn't even see you anymore, who doesn't respect you anymore, and he uses his money to control you, even though technically it's both of your money, because you both made it together. You invested in the business. And I think this speaks so much to how we do business when we think we have close relationships with people. In a previous episode of my podcast, I spoke about how I allowed somebody who I believed was a safe space, but clearly wasn't, to work with me and then run away with all of our money. And I want to urge women, especially who are watching this video, to understand that, especially when we work with men, a lot of the time, men, at least in my experience of business, I'm not saying all men, but I'm saying in my experience of business and the women that I know, a lot of the time, men do not like the idea of even having a story where a woman helped them. They inherently believe that women are there to support them in their dreams. And they never see your support as an investment. They see it as a prerequisite of you showing your love and value in their lives. So they can never accept the idea that commercially you would have a stake in what they've built, because in their egotistical mindset, they actually did it themselves and you help them with the small things that don't matter. Even though deep down they know that you were actually the driving force behind the business. And that's why I don't encourage women to just go into partnerships with men without real contracts in place. Because even the market, when you go out to pitch with your male partner, business partner, people assume that he is the one who's done the bulk of the work. They assume that he is the mastermind behind what you guys are doing. And they assume that he needs to be the one who's listened to. And 9 times out of 10, men take advantage of that and they play into that because of all the opportunities that will come to them from that. And some of these opportunities aren't money. It's also social validation, becoming famous. Men love that stuff. Certain kinds of men love that stuff, especially men who are entrepreneurs. You find that men who are entrepreneurs tend to have narcissistic traits. They may not be narcissists, but they do have narcissistic traits that make them really dangerous individuals to be around when success eventually comes their way, because they'll want to take on the full spotlight without acknowledging the people who are building with them. Right? And if they do, you have to be a support. You could never be a co-mastermind, a co-founder. They don't allow that to happen. Even when you look at the landscape, if you think I'm wrong, tell me which businesses have that. Tell me which businesses you know in South Africa where the man and woman are equal co-founders, they're equally famous, and they get equal respect. I'll wait. Let me know in the comment section. And if you had to Google it, then you're cheating, because you know that what I'm saying is correct. It's the same with the conversation about podcasters. They say that we don't have a lot of good female podcasters. When you say, okay, who are the good ones? They can't even mention them. Why? Because society's gaze is patriarchal and misogynistic. And we try to identify brilliance in men, and we really don't see the brilliance in women. And even in our minds, we kind of erase it. We know Lebu's good, but we're not going to say it once they ask us to name people who are great, because it's not in our focus. It's not in how we see the world. So if you're a woman and you want to work with a man, please protect yourself contractually and be very clear about wanting to take up as much space as that person is taking up. Do not let him be the face. Both of you can be the face. But the person who's the face will always have more power. Trust me. Unless you as the woman are coming in with heavy backing and resources that make you more powerful than that person. But if you're not, then be the face with him. Let people know you exist and tell your story as loud as possible. This is for all my female founders, all my female co-founders, especially when you're working with men, because it's easy for them to take the spotlight. Be loud. Take up that space. Show people you are the one. Never keep quiet. And when you face abuse from that male business partner, because they will do it, especially if they're egotistical and display narcissistic traits, call it out immediately, publicly. Because if you keep quiet and you allow the behavior to maintain itself and sustain itself, then when you eventually call it out, people are going to blame you and say, but why didn't you say this in the beginning? Now it seems like you're saying it because you're jealous of this person, which is not true. Most of the time, you were keeping quiet because you wanted to preserve the business. You wanted to preserve your guys' reputation and relationship. So you thought, let me handle this quietly and personally and privately. Don't do it. Show that person that you're not here to play. Show them that this is business and that they are not the only valuable cog in this brand. Because if you don't do that, you're going to be labeled as bitter. You're going to be labeled as somebody who doesn't like other people succeeding and all these other terms that are not correct and not true. The same as Lekau's wife. She's not getting the right publicity. She's gotten completely false publicity based on the interview that she just did on Perseverance's podcast, right? And we can even see threads of her kind of regretting not doing something sooner. So now that we've got people at Lekau to learn from them. Learn from them. Don't judge her. Don't make fun of her, because it could be you too. If these claims are true, I would hope that as women, as a collective, we do not support drip. That we make it very clear that we are not concerned with entrepreneurs who want to be celebrities if they're not creating products that are deeply rooted in the right ethical things. Any woman who supports a brand that hates women, or that has a founder who abuses women and treats women badly, is a woman who needs to reframe how she sees her own value in the world and the value of other women. I am a firm believer in boycotting brands that are not pro-women, or brands that have founders whose principles and values do not reflect that of creating a safe space for women. It is really disheartening that it could be possible that Lekau went on all of these press escapades, saying that his business doesn't have money, but then buying a new car, doing all these crazy things just to prove to his wife that he can do whatever he wants because he's got social media at the palm of his hands. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a dangerous human being. She makes those claims in that video with Perseverance, and she says that he keeps saying that he knows how to control social media. He's got people in the palm of his hands. The arrogance. That is somebody who's deeply in need of therapy because they need social validation in a way that is too profound, and in a way that is too big for a healthy human being. And the idea that you can control people and you can just play with them on social media also speaks to your values about how you really view other people. You see them as puppets. You see them as useless puppets that you can play with whenever you feel like it. And you think they're stupid. Because whenever you want, you can tell a lie and you believe you're so powerful that they're going to believe you. Guys, that is not the character we need from anyone who is a leader in South Africa or on the African continent. Africa, the time is now, is a statement that is still fresh. We're still proving to the world and to our own people that as African people, we can take up space meaningfully and lead. We don't need leaders who give the face of or the brand African leadership a bad rep. We need to show ourselves and the world that Black African people are capable of being inspirational leaders who are also incredibly moral, who have a backbone, who care about people, who have family values, and who have their heads screwed on correctly. What Lekau allegedly is doing is bigger than just him and Drip and whatever companies he owns. It's about the brand of African leadership. And it looks bad for all of us, and it sends the wrong message to other young people who want to become what he is now, which is a successful entrepreneur. It sends the wrong message to them about what their value is, how they should value women, and how they should navigate through society. And on top of that, if you are an entrepreneur and you are public facing and you have a business that is popular, please do not let social media hype make you forget who you are. Having influence, being able to, get social media to talk about you, having that kind of power isn't something you should be abusing. It should be something that you're using in order to get sales, to build brand, to create more employment, right? But not to harass your wife, not to control your family, not to manipulate the people that you love. Please use social media responsibly. It's such a powerful tool. You can make heavy sales, you can monetize, you can build global brand, you can bring people together. There's so much that you can do. Please use it wisely. Let me know what you guys think about this whole Lebogang versus Lekau situation. And I know some of you were probably thinking in the beginning, what does this have to do with marketing? Trust me, anything with pop culture and within pop culture always has something to do with marketing. Right now in this video, we spoke about the dynamics of entrepreneurship and what we need to be doing when we want to partner with anyone, whether they are a loved one or not. Then we spoke about brand leadership, right? Brand leadership is a thing, especially where African entrepreneurs are concerned. Are they showcasing that African leaders are a good brand and a good investment? Or are they showcasing that we are reckless and irresponsible and that we're actually not fit to lead and build companies? That's such a big narrative. It's part of the reason why we're not getting as much funding as we should as African entrepreneurs. We're not getting half the opportunities. That's part of the reason. It's not the whole reason, but it's part of the reason. So we need to change that. And we also spoke about how do we use social media responsibly as business people who get a bit of fame, who get a bit of influence from having a successful product or brand. We need to be more responsible and understand the potential it has and not use it as a weapon, but rather use it as a tool for change and a tool for growth. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section and tell me what topics you want me to cover, anything that's happening in pop culture that you'd like me to talk about. And we can talk about it because now we're having couch conversations and it's relaxed, and sometimes I'll be having my tea or a glass of wine. But this really is a safe space for conversation. You can come in your pajamas, you can come in your tracksuits, come as you are. Let's talk. Intellect has nothing to do with what we're wearing. It's all about what we're saying. So let me know in the comment section what you think of this whole Lekau thing. Do you wear Drip? Are you a fan of Drip? For me personally, I support South African brands and African brands. If I know it's an African person who's behind the company, I will buy the product at least once or recommend it because I believe that that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be evangelists of our own brands. So I'm disappointed if this stuff is true, if these claims are true, because the last thing I want is to have African brands under a bad spotlight with bad PR. I really believe we need as many African brands in the market that succeed and that make us look good, not only globally, but also to each other locally. So it breaks my heart, and I really hope for Lekau's sake that he's going to fix this, because we do need brands like Drip in the market doing their thing. I love you all, and I'll see you next week on another episode of, I think, what I'm going to start calling Couch Conversations with Lebo Lion. Mwah.